My name is Bill Yates. I'm a partner with the Mergers and Acquisitions firm. It's based in Maryland. I actually live in Texas, but I work with teams all over the world, mostly in North America, but I work with some teams in Europe and other parts of the world too, in Australia. But we do ownership transactions for professional sports teams. My roots and my background, I'm proud to have started my career as an entry-level sales rep selling I'm proud to have started as an entry-level sales rep selling sponsorships and tickets for a minor league hockey team in Texas, and to have worked my way through the ranks of professional sports. I started 20 years ago, which is probably why Troy asked me to talk about old school sales techniques. But I think really what we're talking about is I would call it the blocking and tackling of sports business, of sports sales. These are the things that, at least in the short term, at least in the near foreseeable future, aren't going anywhere. And they're really a very, very important part of the sales process. These are things that I learned 20 years ago and figured out over the course of my career. But in talking with these guys and several others, I have learned is really what successful sales reps in the sports industry do. There's a lot more than just the technical world of connecting with somebody on LinkedIn or just having this kind of pseudo relationship with people, and it goes deeper than just doing that. And this is more about just developing a relationship, kind of in ways that are more meaningful than just becoming a face in the crowd or just being another person who's connecting digitally or whatever it may be. So, do you guys want to just stand up and introduce yourselves individually? Is that okay?
Yeah.
You want to start? We'll start on the.
How you guys doing? So, Michael Salick, I'm with the Sales Founders. I'm on the premium team. So, primary focus is gauging their businesses and working on selling them suites and VIP seating. So, I've been doing this for my 6 years in sports. Started with the Seahawks and spent 2 years with the Miami Dolphins. One thing you'll find, like, sports is very tight-knit for those that aren't in the industry, but probably the best part about it, as you talked about earlier, you can literally start as a bottom sales rep and work your way up all the way to the top. It's a very unique industry in that regard, whereas if you're working at Target, the likelihood of you going from cash register all the way to the top is pretty tough. So sports, tough nut to crack as far as getting in, but once you're in, it's very tight-knit, and it's probably the most rewarding career you have.
I'm Michael Espada. I've been in sales and sports and entertainment since 2005. Everything from MLB, NHL, NBA, and NCAA, Division I. Currently, I'm in more of the entertainment world. I'm in arts and entertainment, doing a lot of private events, group sales for concerts, art fairs, private events, museums, movie theaters, taking the sports philosophy into that. But I agree, the relationships are key. It's very tight-knit, but the more you grow in your industry, you'll notice the more grassroots your relationships start, the longer you can take them with you in every step of the way and keep them no matter where you go. So, interested to talk more with you all about it.
Afternoon, everyone. My name is James Bryan, go by JB. I'm the Senior Manager of Sales Development for the Colorado Rapids. I started my career in this industry with no sales experience at all, and took an entry-level position with Sporting Kansas City of Major League Soccer. Spent most of my sort of selling career in the New York Yankees for about 3 or 4 years, and now oversee all of the training and recruiting from not only our entry-level teams, but also our senior members of our staff as well of the Rapids.
Hi guys, I am Jacob Hansman. I'm the Senior Director of Ticket Sales for the Colorado Rapids in Major League Soccer, and oversee everything from a new business side with us, from premium seating to season tickets, group sales, inside sales, and also our soccer sales team. Got my start in Major League Soccer now 9 seasons ago. Started with MLS's National Sales Training Program, the National Sales Center in Blaine, Minnesota. Then spent 3 seasons with the Chicago Fire as a season ticket account executive. 1 year with the Columbus Crew as their inside sales manager, overseeing training and development. Then 2.5 years with the Sacramento Kings in the NBA as senior manager of inside sales prior to transitioning to Kroenke Sports Entertainment in my current role in 2016.
Good. Well, I think one of the things that probably is kind of the starting point for so many sales reps is picking up the phone, and we call it smile and dial. It's really just, number one, I guess, identifying the companies that you're going to call, or individuals, I guess, in some cases, but I think we could probably focus mainly on the companies that you're going to call. It's identifying those companies, but then also, what do you do next? I mean, what's your objective when you're making those calls? Because it's not, you don't want to just talk to somebody just to talk to them. You've got an objective, and then we can go on beyond that and talk about how to handle situations with gatekeepers and receptionists. And I was in the last session I was in, we were talking about caller ID, and that being considered a gatekeeper of sorts. What I'd be interested in hearing, Michael, Seattle Michael, what you may be doing today that you did earlier in your career, or that you saw sales reps doing earlier in your career that still rings true today on how to make those phone calls.
Yeah. So I was taught, really what changed my game was a guy named Max in a way when I was with the Miami Dolphins. He took great pride on being an expert in the industry that he was calling. I think initially what I was used to growing and starting my career was B2C, which is essentially a single game buyer, someone that bought a ticket to a game, the next day you're calling them. Very transactional. So then when I first started calling businesses, it was just leads that the Dolphins bought, that local businesses, whether based on employee size, revenue size, we should call them. But there was no, I was just calling random people, right? Not knowing. So he taught me that at the end of the day, you go in on a call or an appointment where you're speaking with potentially an owner of a company or a high-level individual, and their mindset is, who are you to tell me what I should do for my business, right? Like, by the fact I'm calling them says they're not interested, right? So I took great pride on being an expert in the industry I'm calling, down to who I'm using. So for me, it's, I mentioned who I'm already working with in exact detail of how I've helped them, how we've helped quantify what their investment is with us, and then essentially pitch an appointment to go meet with them and see if I can help them, right? Just based on your industry, assume you would have similar struggles. So it's very key down to it. And then even to further that, just how sports is small, the more I found when I realized I'm focused on the industry, a lot of them know each other. So as I'm name dropping of who I'm working with at other companies, they know that individual. And so they can call them up and find out exactly why. So that way when I call them a gatekeeper, I'm not just a sales rep from the Seattle Sounders. Here's why I'm calling. Here's who I'm working with. It's very more low-key and hands-off.
In your early training, did you do role-playing and talk about scripting, essentially, your calls? Yeah,
so, in Miami, you had a script in front of you. You knew it like the back of your hand. You had objections randomly throughout the day. Our boss would come and say, hey, I can't afford tickets, and you would have to come back to the objection. Right? If you didn't get it right, you had to stay late, sort of thing, right? Like, you had to know. Now, in the role now, it's more like an expectation of it, but it's a little bit different, I feel, on the B2B than it is B2C. Businesses, they're smart, they know what you're getting at, they want you to get straight to it. I found it's less initial rapport, but until I meet with them, then I get more into the detailed rapport aspect of it.
And Michael Espada, you have been kind of at different levels. Doing now you're doing more events focused in entertainment and less sports specific, which probably adds an added challenge because you're not so much playing on a season-long thing that belongs to your market as opposed to something that might just be visiting town. What challenges do you see there?
Education. Obviously, you're representing a sports product. People know the brands, know the business, and in this industry, it's a little bit a newer product, so it's a little bit more challenging, which really is where the one-on-one communication comes into play. It gives you the advantage. People don't read emails anymore. When they don't know who it's from or it doesn't have the subject line that they're expecting or have some urgency behind it. So emails work phone calls work, and it's kind of teaming up on all ends of it to provide that education for what you're selling. But I think the biggest challenge that we see day to day with reps is kind of having a game plan going into every call. We try to set it up to where if a call fails, we take notes. What happened on that call? Where did you go wrong? Where did you see it go wrong? Where did it take that turn from being closed or potential meeting? So how do we come up with those bullet points and steps going into a call so that we know what we want to come out with?
So analyzing activities and continuing education throughout is figuring out better ways to do something tomorrow that we did today.
Absolutely, and I think it becomes more and more natural, in my opinion. The earlier you do that in the training process, it becomes more of a natural process for reps to kind of just take note of what happened on their calls and what can they do better on the next one. Where did they miss on the game plan going in? Or what did they end the call with not getting that they wanted to achieve going into the call?
So do you think as a sales manager, it sounds to me like you're saying that you find it very beneficial to sit down with sales reps and talk about, rather than just saying, well, why in the hell didn't you do this, or why is this going wrong? It's kind of, what can we do better to prevent this from going wrong in the future? Is that?
Depends on who's that day, but.
Okay, gotcha.
No, absolutely. I think the just working through the details of why everything is happening is helpful, not only for the reps, but for me as well, to help coach better.
Well, from that, so from a rep perspective, my mindset early on was whatever I didn't feel like I was doing right, get it, and then fix it, and then move on. And just early on, quickly realized it's that constant crap, and it's very easy to get into bad habits than it is to stay in good. And so just having that open-minded to actually hear from a manager and hearing that feedback. I mean, it's tough when he's standing right behind you to make a call in front of him, knowing that you're going to not get chewed out, but you got to take that rejection, right? And so that's the hardest part, just less of yourself, knowing that you just want to get better.
Now, JB, is that a Cleveland accent that I hear?
I guess Nebraska.
Yeah,
Nebraska?
Midwest. Yeah.
Midwest.
Yeah, good old Midwest.
Where are you from?
About an hour south of London.
Okay.
Father is English, my mother's from Myrtle Beach.
Oh, Myrtle Beach. Yeah, quite
So nice.
a pairing.
Yeah. So kind of like a British guy raised us as a southerner. So kind of
Interesting.
combination.
And how? What do you find in your role in the MLS? What do you find is some of the nuances that could help with regards to? And we're sticking with phone calls right now, but what are some of the nuances that you find with regard just to soccer versus anything else that might help make a difference with you getting appointments, scheduling appointments, and getting face-to-face with the decision maker?
So I think for Major League Soccer, it's probably more educational for the B2B clientele. I think what we find is, I think companies are traditionally have always utilized baseball tickets, American football tickets, and hockey tickets. And I think one thing that we're up for the challenge for is actually educating our clientele that we offer just the same experiences and benefits that maybe they are used to with the other teams in that specific market. So I think one thing that we really focus on is kind of telling our story and how soccer is a very different experience when it comes to bringing out sort of your clientele or even sort of entertain your employees. I think like you probably kind of experienced kind of from the NFL, kind of selling American football to selling soccer. We're educating, I think, more on the B2B clientele than ever before, telling our story of like, yes, soccer is such a global game, and even if you're not necessarily a huge fan of the sport, I think we deliver a very unique experience when it comes to MLS games and also just the video interaction that they have with the actual fans or the community as well.
Do you work with your staff on overcoming objections over the phone? What kind of training and ongoing education do you have?
Yeah, so I think this is, our academy is designed for that specific reason. It's like we are constantly developing our reps to make sure that when they take on the much bigger roles that, might pass on the premium team, that their processes doesn't change as they continue to their growth. So we're very heavy on just process to where that's ultimately going to lead you to a very successful career in this industry by not changing the process at all as you go from inside sales to the account executives.
Now, Jacob, you went through the academy. What would you, of the things that they taught and that you learned through the MLS Academy, what would you say is one of the most important things that you probably have put into practice most often that you learned through the academy?
Yeah, I think the one thing that's always translated is the sales process in terms of moving from MLS to MBA back to MLS. Like the sales process has always stayed the same, and I think that's the best thing that the MLS National Sales Center has done is they have a very strict 6-step sales process that's been taught, refined here and there over the last 8 years, but it's been a proven success in terms of how to go about phone sales. And I think what we try to do when we have reps that come from the National Sales Center and come into market is how do we take that process and then adjust it to scheduling appointments, getting face-to-face, because that's how we believe people are buying now. Like we want to have a natural connection with the consumer. We want to get face-to-face. We want to have that conversation in person. So how are we tailoring that 6-step sales process to closing on the phone, to then scheduling an appointment, then asking for the close and making that recommendation when we get face-to-face.
Okay. Well, I want all of you guys to chime in or whenever you think it's necessary. But I hear a lot of talk about selling to the next step as opposed to just trying to sell over the phone. You know, you want to sell the next step. So in other words, your first sale would be getting the meeting. Your second sale would be making the presentation and making the proposal, and then finally trying to close on a deal. Once you've sold through all those processes, for any of you, how do you train and prepare for the process? I mean, you talk about making the phone call. We can't just tell our reps, here's a phone book, go make phone calls, good luck, because they're going to burn out in the first week. How do you work on developing that process? Anybody answer as you feel?
Yeah, so before anybody gets on the phone, we actually do a pretty intense 2-week orientation before someone gets on the phone. So from day one, you start. Your probably first day on the phone is day 14 or 15. And what we do is we take our 6 stages of our process, and we use improv and fun sort of engaging activities to really illustrate that particular part of our sales process. So it kind of relates to the individual, or more than just kind of the death by PowerPoint, or just kind of just giving them sort of the script into going to fail. So I think we certainly do a ton of role plays, a ton of just instant feedback. But then after a while, day 14 comes, and sometimes the best way of learning is just going to do it and kind of trusting your process. I know the 76 has got the trust the process. I think we're big believers of that in some way, shape, or form. But it's just following your training, and I think that's kind of why we've been successful kind of getting people to the next levels, because that process never changes. On whether it be B2C, B2B, is people that stick to that process, the better, the more successful that they have.
I think the other thing in terms of when we're talking about selling to the next step, there's also smaller wins along the sales process. So we inherently, as salespeople, get told no 99 times out of 100, but if you're selling the next step, you're going to get those small wins, and each and every day you're getting a win when you're scheduling an appointment, you're getting a win when you complete an appointment, schedule that follow-up, and then all the way to the close. So I think when you're focused on those small steps along the process as well, you can articulate what those wins are that are then going to lead to sales, and then at the very end, it also helps break it down for people. It doesn't make this as monotonous as, hey, you're coming in and making 100 phone calls a day, because
So do you as sales managers, do you set goals for your staff that are not dollar related? I mean, do you schedule, or do you set goals that say, we want to schedule this many meetings with decision makers each week, or we want to make so many calls a day, or whatever those wins are? What can you talk about that?
I mean, anything from a household board to just straight measurements to judge on where we are. I think that helps you as a manager and as a rep to know where you stand. If I'm not hitting my sales goals, let me look at my metrics and see what I'm doing. So am I not having enough meetings? Am I having 5 meetings a week and not hitting my weekly numbers or net revenue. Maybe I need to get 10 meetings a week. It just gives more measure points along the way for you to gauge not only where you are as a rep, but as a manager managing reps. But I think the strategy I take in that is making it more of a consultative approach. So you're not just making cold calls, trying to make that sale right over the phone. It does make it more engaging for you as well as gives you more touch points with the client to build that relationship, to push them down through the sales process. But you'll have a higher win percentage by setting those meetings, by sending those thank you cards, by having those follow-ups and having more touch points before you're asking for the final close.
Very good.
Yeah, we to that point, we make it, I think our job as managers is to try and make that fun each and every day. So we come up with some ridiculous sales contests and fun things to kind of keep it engaged. A couple of weeks ago, we just did a Ryder Cup. So I had my team of 10, and we had Team Europe versus Team USA. It was kind of competing against each other. We did 1v1s, 2v2s. So those metrics that we really want our reps to focus on, because the revenue is the byproduct of the process that you teach and what you're doing each and every day. So it's how do we as a management start making fun and engaging to where they're having fun throughout sort of learning the sales process as well.
Good. I like that the sales is the byproduct of the activity. That's a good point. In terms of just what you've learned over your careers, or what your experiences have been over your careers, what would you say you know now that you wished you knew on day one?
Don't get into sales.
Oh, come on.
No, it's the most rewarding thing ever, and I joke about that, but honestly, when I started my career, I had two options. One was to get into community relations, where I could make $9.50 an hour. Now I'm dating myself. The other one was to get into sales, where it was $8.75 an hour plus uncapped commissions. My first question was, what are commissions? I didn't even know what it was, but once I realized there's an opportunity to get into something where your activity, you can drive your results and achieve your success by what you do every day, that's what got me into sales. So I do joke about that. But I think just understanding patience when I first started off, I think I was a bit aggressive, trying to just get that first call closed every time. I wanted to be the first one on board. I wanted to be the first one in every day and just close out that first phone call every single time. That took me a little bit of time, but that's not reality. Once I heard on cap commissions, I just wanted to close deals right away. So knowing today what I know now, I could go back and be much more successful even earlier on in my career by learning the process of setting the meetings and going through the sales process and building those relationships.
Good. Michael, any thoughts from you on what you would be able to tell yourself 10 years ago, or whenever it was you started your career?
Yeah, so I would say the perception that sales is bad. I would think for me, my mom's a wedding coordinator, my dad's an engineer, my brother's an engineer, 3 other sisters are stay-at-home moms, my other brother's in medical school, right? So like, I'm a sales guy, right? And initially it was just that you're going to sell sports, and like, wow, like you must be making good money. Like for those of you that aren't in the industry, like players get the money. But then you quickly just realize like everyone is selling at some point, and I use this illustration all the time. Like our director of IT is always pitching ideas of how to change our infrastructure. He's always selling his idea. And for me, it was just you're learning the art of communicating. And it's not just, I'm going to convince you, I'm going to ask you these questions, you're going to respond in this way, and now I'm going to convince you to buy something. It's taking great pride in actually understanding how can I help your business using Sounders assets. And just for me, it's the amount of people that you get to engage with. I mean, yes, I get to make 100 calls a day, but that's 100 new people I get to talk to every day, right? A new perspective, a new approach, right? And the amount of business owners that I met with that said, hey, whenever you want to like stop working, like come work for me, right? Sort of thing. It's that's like when I know like it's awesome. They really appreciated the level of service that we get. Sports is unique, right? We could sit next to each other at a game, never met each other, but for 90 minutes of a soccer game, we're the same. Right, and that's the powerful, and that's ultimately what you're selling. And so just don't perceive sports sales as the only way to get in the industry. If you don't want to go down that road, like don't do it. Everyone will tell you it's the easiest way. But if you have an interest in it, like definitely get it and just grind harder than anyone else wants to.
Very good. What, are there any topics anybody out here wants to talk about? I mean, we want to hear any questions or thoughts or ideas or any specific areas that we didn't address. Questions? Raise your hand or shout it out or, yes, Ken.
How's the best way to train a new staff? We happen to have 2 new folks who have never done sales before. And in our business, it seems like everybody needs to do a little bit of sales. What's the best way to start them off so that you don't scare them away with the rejection, and you also, how can you motivate them to get going?
Who would be conducting the training?
Me.
With a sales background?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's important when training happens to start with someone that has the background, that has that understanding, absolutely. The reason I ask that is there's a lot of organizations that really haven't had that sales culture. I've been a part of them, and that's why I've gotten hired to come in and build that. So, but I think starting with that, with the knowledge of sales, and then going through the basics, trying to reach out to other teams. A lot of times they'll get tired of hearing your voice. Having one person say the same thing over and over again sometimes can get stale. So I think when I was with Legends, we had a lot of resources in the same company that we were able to reach out to other properties and just have meetings, just talk about successful sales calls, talk about challenging sales calls, talk about areas where we need help, so that peers could actually conduct training with each other. So if for someone that's never done sales and you're trying to put them into that environment, I think hearing from peers in the industry is important.
I've never managed people before, right? But coming from a seller's perspective on it, I think ultimately, we all know the whole idea of what's your why. Like, what are they motivated to do? Are they here just to sell? Like, what is their end goal? Where do they want to get to? Right? And understanding that rep, what are they motivated by, will be great in terms of how you customize that training. I think one of the best things I got when I was in Miami, so I went through their inside sales program, got promoted, spent a year in groups. This isn't like promote what I did, but it had the best year of groups they've ever had in their history. Then had a one-on-one with our vice president of sales, Nick Foro, who hired James when he was at the Yankees. And he told me, he's like, you're still, you need more reps. So even after making thousands of calls, years into it, he still reminded me that you need more time. And that was just big, was that song that just understood that even with success, you still just need more reps and you're always trying to learn. Because he knew for me, like, my motivation was just to get better and learn from those that have done it. And that was extremely rewarding for him to tell me that.
Somebody else had a question out here. Did you have something?
No, I just wanted to ask, how do you see compensation plans changing? Do you see them becoming more sophisticated with different accelerators, different sort of hitting certain goals, getting, again, different types of compensation? Do you see those plans changing, or are they pretty much straight commissions at this point?
I can probably address that because I work with a lot of different teams and see all of their budgets and have reviewed a lot of employment contracts. And I see that most teams are, very few teams are paying just a straight salary for almost every position. Typically there are bonuses and commissions and other incentives to perform. And it's very, very difficult to say that the trend is X percentage of sales or X percentage of your salaries or your annual remuneration is salary versus commission versus bonus. But I think what we're seeing is that it's probably close to half of your income is going to be salary, enough to keep your cell phone on and keep your house from being foreclosed upon, and then all the cherry on the banana split is going to be your sales performance. It's going to be how you produce numbers, and hopefully you get paid a lot of money. That's how we're seeing most of these teams, and from minor leagues to major leagues are structuring usually around half. It's hard to say that that's the exact number, but I think usually it's about half of their income income is going to be salary versus commissions. Or bonuses.
Within the variable, though, on the commissions, though, are you seeing different accelerators for specific, like
Oh.
selling to specific types of customers or dollar values or things like that?
No, not a lot. I mean, we every once in a while we'll see teams that pay X percent for group tickets and Y percent for season tickets, but that's pretty rare. I think most teams typically will pay the same percentage for. What's your team?
I'm not with the team.
Okay.
No.
Well, I'm just asking. I mean, because there might be some differences between an NFL team and a minor league baseball team or something like that. But usually it's a set percentage on renewal versus new versus season tickets or group tickets or luxury suites or sponsorship. I mean, typically it's all pretty much the same. And occasionally we'll see accelerators or rarely caps, but usually, sometimes accelerators where they'll go from a 3% commission to 5% once they reach certain goals and objectives. But in most cases, it's pretty simple. It's just you get your 3% or whatever, your 10%, I don't know what it is, but you get your percentage and that's it. There's no cap on it or restriction. Bonuses sometimes, bonuses for meeting certain goals or renewal rates or whatever it may be.
One area I have seen it change a little bit is when I first started in sports, it was a lot of teams were doing it based on your goal. So the longer you were there, you were almost punished with your commission percentages because your goals were higher than some of the newer reps. So a third or fourth year rep could sell the same amount as a first year rep, but because they had lower goals, the first year rep was going to get a higher commission on the same amount of revenue generated. So I have seen a lot, but
Do any of you guys, do you pass your accounts on to fulfillment teams and then you lose track of them after that? I mean, you individually don't get any commissions for renewals? Is that how it works?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I could go out, sell, hit my goal next year, I sell $1 million worth of business, and I don't get any of that next year from a renewal standpoint.
That's the way it's structured for you
Yeah,
now?
so teams are different in that. The thought with us here at the Sounders, and it's one I believe in, I get paid to sell. Granted, some of that is service, doesn't mean I'm not gonna help my accounts or help my teammate out, but we wanna best serve that account and best, quantify it so they know the usage of it. So we have a team that's dedicated primarily on that. We do it on a premium basis as well as most teams have a service team for seasons. But I get paid to sell, and so it's to go after that new business. And for me, it's what I found in Miami, on the groups team I worked with, some guys were in their 50s and they just kind of sat around all day because they had this massive book of business that they didn't really care about nurturing and growing. They were just maintaining it. And so I think it really helps create that culture of just wanting to get after it. Because there's some people that are more designed to want to just provide great customer service than they are just to want to go sell it. There's different kind of reps. So that's what we're at. So they have their own individual goals that they have to renew. And renew have to get paid out, but I'm strictly just straight up new business. My best friend at the Mariners, he does both. But it's also harder for him to sell because he's also fired.
yeah, I was actually talking to the VP at the Mets. They actually have a group sales retention team, which I've never heard of. A lot of network in group sales for a long time, and we did everything. So we would manage your book of business, which is why your goals would go up because you're renewing the groups that you sold each year, trying to grow those, but also trying to go out and get new ones. The Mets actually have a full-fledged service and retention team for group sales, as well as a group sales new business, which I thought was interesting.
One thing we did in Miami, for inside sales, they got a higher hourly wage and they didn't get any benefits of working at that team because most of them were so young, they stayed on their parents anyways. Right, and so they just increased their hourly rate that they would make, so that's beneficial. And the other thing it goes down to what are some other areas of compensation that isn't money related? How else can you be investing in your people and developing them? Because I think initially, in sports, you're not in it for the money. That happens later. If you were selling for money, you'd be selling something else.
I think one of the things we've continually found is one of the biggest motivators now is more team-based activities or team-based contests for our group. Certainly, that the younger group that's coming out, they like doing things in group rather than individual motivators. So how are we contesting or putting incentives in place that are when we hit team milestones? It is team-based incentives that's getting everybody bought into that. And almost every single time we see a bigger result from putting things out there like that rather than individual
fitting for the topic in this room of old school strategies and how they work. It's just like sales. Managing is just like sales. We can't just say, this is how I'm going to manage the staff. This is going to be the blanket rule. This is how I'm going to motivate them, whether they like it or not. It's not going to be very motivating, right? So I think learning about your employees and what's going to motivate each individually as well as a team is just as important as on the phones learning about your clients and what strategies are going to work to sell them. So if you have the flexibility, then you have to create different incentive packages, different incentive ways in order to motivate those teams. Not everybody has that flexibility though, so.
I saw a tweet earlier this week, it might have been yesterday or the day before, from Val Persinger, who is really the one who makes things happen for the East Coast Hockey League, about the importance of sending a thank you note. And if we're talking old school, I get thank you notes regularly through the email, which is nice to meet with someone and get a thank you note through the email. But I rarely get a thank you note that's handwritten and sent through the old school USPS. Is that something that you guys do? I mean, do you ever go on a sales call and send an actual handwritten note to somebody that shocks and blows their mind?
I'm old school, so absolutely.
Yeah.
I have a budget line in my budget for postage and thank you cards, so absolutely. I think it's a great touch. Sometimes they get annoyed because they do it almost after every meeting, but they remember you. It's an easy way to stand out from the crowd.
My mindset always was like I can make 100 calls a day, so it's 500 a week. Hopefully, book 5 appointments that week. Next week going maybe 2 of those 5, right? So I work too hard to not give it everything I have. So what's 30 seconds to write a note? So most of the time I already have them prepped and ready. But I've gotten feedback of people like, "Wow, you're the youngest person ever giving me a thank you note." Like they were more impressed that I actually did it than what it was. So I even write thank you notes for my clients, right, even for that. So it's on behalf of my clients and them. I think you're right now. I call a lot of people that they were used to that form of business, right? When they started going after companies, like when they built out their companies, they were used to thank you notes. And so now that they don't have less of that, it's impactful to see someone like myself to be doing that for them. Then even further, the younger ones that aren't used to that, for them it's such a rarity that they actually appreciate it. I mean, even when's the last time you guys got one? Can you remember who it was? Right, so there's that question, does it matter? Right, why do it if you can't? But like, it doesn't hurt you.
Yeah, I think the why handwritten notes still are very impactful is because they separate you from everybody else. And that's ultimately what us and we all work in markets where there are many competitors, and it's all about how we separating ourselves from them. If one company is getting the same type of phone call from every single sports team, it's what are you doing differently, and spending that extra bit of time to separate yourself from the folks who are trying to get that business that you're ultimately going for. So we love handwritten notes. I love the people who come up with like creative ways of kind of gaining attention, because that's ultimately what we're hopefully trying to do. I've seen people send like baseballs with kind of something that's like cliche, it's like, well, let's get the ball rolling this season, and on the baseball. But it's about how do you create communication. That's ultimately what handwritten notes and doing something outside of kind of normal, just picking up the phone and just sending an email. You're probably going to, and I know I personally would, if someone spent that little bit of time to do something creative, I'm going to give that person a phone call back because they spent that extra bit of time, and that's ultimately what we're trying to do. We're trying to create communication and dialogue between ourselves and our potential prospects.
So we can talk about thank you notes or handwritten notes to say thank you for meeting with me, but you're saying we could also use handwritten notes to say, I'd love a chance to meet with you. I'd love a chance to tell you about what we're doing.
Yeah.
So when I was in Miami, there was quickly found there's like a lot of personal luck out there. So pretty much researched and ran a list of people that bought within a certain zip code that was more affluent in that regard. So then sent them a note with a cleat, right? That would just welcome to the neighborhood, just want to get the conversation off on the right foot. That's all it was. I have no idea if they're a fan or not. I got one person actually wrote me back. They wrote me a note, and they said, come meet. So actually, when it was the weirdest thing, I went to his house, and there was a security guy outside of the neighborhood. And he's like, I had to be like told I can come in, right? And this massive, very wealthy person, who ironically I never even sold him. Never even actually sold it, but it was the coolest thing, right? It meant a lot to me that he actually responded back. But I use them all the time to get in the doors, and even now, same like with Sounders. You go either way with it, because it's one of those like you want to give away a lot of stuff right initially, and it's just sending out stuff blindly, hoping it. So I at least have a strategy with what you're sending. Now, so like I'm focusing on construction, so I bought like a lot of white construction hats that put Sounder stickers on each side of the hat. So sent those to those guys who's trying to plant the idea in their head.
We did a shock and awe campaign for the Yankees down in Tampa for their spring training facility, where we got broken bats. There were nobody's bats; they were just minor leaguers bats, no names on them or anything. But they were broken, and we put them in a bat tube, send them out to CEOs and the top prospects we had for partnerships. I had one guy call back, and he's like, "Why did you send me a bat?" I was like, "Did you not see the card in there?" They didn't even see the card, but it got them to call me back. The card actually said, "We want you to be, you're the missing piece to our new project at Stafford Field." So that's me. But that guy called me back because he didn't even see the card. He was wondering why he ended up looking at that. So different touch points. It's amazing how it works. There's no silver bullet. And that's the first thing I was thinking about when I got asked to speak on this panel about homeschool and cold calls and thank you cards and all those things. It's emails work, LinkedIn works, phone calls work. All these touch points work, but in their own ways. You never know which one is going to work for which person. So it's combining all of those efforts, old school with new school, and taking every risk you can. Text messaging works. It's crazy how many reps I've had who are millennials, and I tell them to text message, and they're so scared to text message a client like that they've never talked to. Just try it. What are they going to do? They'll block you if they don't want to talk to you. Right? What do you have to lose? So giving it every shot you can is the name of the game in this business.
What other questions or topics can we talk about? Well, I think I can speak for all of these guys and say, please connect with us on LinkedIn and Twitter and wherever else we are. And I think I can speak for them and say thank you for all of you for attending. And we want to help you, otherwise we wouldn't be here today. And hopefully you can help us too. But I'm sure they would be happy to speak offline and answer any questions you might have. And hopefully someday down the road, when we need a job, you'll be hiring and we'll be able to come get a job from you or something. But anyway, we appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you down the road. Thank you.